I've so graciously shared with you before, my name is Darryl Morin, and with your support, I'm planning on being the next LULAC National President, leading this great and historic organization. Thank you. It wasn't until late last night I was able to confirm that I'd be able to be here. I just flew in from New York City. But I need to make a couple of policy remarks. We've been getting a lot of requests on some things, so I'm going to be doing that. But before I get into that, I just wanted to say how every time I come, and you can see it even on the Facebook post, the tremendous work that is being done every day here in Iowa, right? Everybody knows LULAC as the Latino organization. But the truth of the matter is, you'll be pressed to find anybody who is not receiving the justice they deserve or the rights they deserve, being refused refuge and assistance by LULAC. We are not just the champions of the Latino community, we're the champions of every community, and as such, we take the defense of human dignity very seriously. So thank you, everyone. And I can always count on LULAC Iowa to always be there in the time of need. Story after story we've heard tonight. Mount Pleasant, thank you everyone. God bless your efforts. Jasmine, the inspiring and touching speech you gave with regards to the separation of the family. The fights that you've had and you've led and you've won against making sure they don't purge Latinos from the voting rolls in Iowa. That is very important, and thank you very much for that. I applaud all of your efforts. You know, in preparing my remarks, it struck me, you probably knew this already, but the postal rates were just 2 days short, or I should say the Mount Pleasant rates were just 2 days short of the anniversary of the postal rates. We know how that did not just tear families apart, that tore the community apart. And we continue to see this happening day in and day out all over our country. We continue to hear this inflammatory, and let's call it what it is, hateful rhetoric that has resulted in a record number of hate crimes happening around our community. And when you look at the majority of those, the question of immigration was never asked. It wasn't about who was legal or who was illegal. It was about people who had prominent Hispanic features and maybe preferred with their family to speak a different language. We are better than that, and we need to, together, as LULAC and as partners of LULAC, make sure we do become the great company, the great country we once were, and that we can be again. We are right now under attack, under siege, in ways that we haven't seen in a generation. I had only heard stories about these things from my parents and from my abuelitos. And it's up to us to make sure we put an end to it. You know, some of the most pressing issues we're facing today are with regards to our DACA recipients, our dreamers. Due to the decision of this White House and this administration, this arbitrary decision, the only thing that are keeping these DACA recipients and dreamers from being deported and from having to run back into the shadows are court cases. While we keep hearing about these deadlines and timelines being met, we've seen no conclusive action. I can tell you that just last night I finished reading the 293 pages of this compromise legislation they're supposed to vote on next week. That and the Good Lab bill. And while I appreciate the effort, there is not a whole lot of compromise in this compromise bill. It doesn't assure a pathway to citizenship for our DACA recipients and our dreamers. There is the right for them to rescind that if some of the excessive security measures they're calling for aren't met. They're funding $25 billion for a wall. And while I know the overwhelming number of Americans, Latinos and non-Latinos alike, understand the need to secure our borders, that wall and the rhetoric surrounding the wall has become a wall of hate. It eliminates the diversity lottery and so many other things. Now, there are some good pieces in there about family separation, about limiting the role the National Guard can play. But in order to get these things, And in order to maybe get a pathway to citizenship for DACA recipients and dreamers, it forces our community to swallow and to make huge concessions. Huge concessions that if we make them now, will all but make it impossible for us to secure a pathway to legalization for what will be the 9 million remaining immigrants in our country. And I think it's important that we keep the larger goal in mind so that we don't sacrifice anyone and leave anyone behind. I also want to talk about another group of Latinos. You know, there's always been, we know that the Hispanic community isn't a monolithic community. We're made up of Caribbean Latinos and Central American Latinos and Mexican and South American Latinos, etc. But the attacks we're seeing today aren't limited to any one of them. They're besieging us all. And I can tell you that a month ago, I went down to the island of Puerto Rico. Not to go and give speeches and to take pictures and to have a fun time on the beach, but to go and see what was the real state of things in Puerto Rico. I read weekly the FEMA reports coming out. Everything looks good, everything's on track. I was appalled by what I found. Techos azules, and those are the blue tarp roofs, continue to be seen across the countryside and even in the cities. People are being denied the funds, the grants, to repair their homes that were oh so easy to get in Texas and in Florida. Electricity hasn't been available for approximately 30 to 40,000 people on the island since September. That means no refrigeration for things like food, which seems obvious, but also life-saving insulin. There's a high percentage of diabetes on the island. And for elderly, on those extremely hot days, it's warm enough as it is down there. No air conditioning, no television, no internet. I know how my children get when they're without Wi-Fi for 15 minutes. I can't believe that we've let American citizens suffer this way. And while I was there, I was honored to meet with their Secretary of State and a number of other high officials after I took the tour with the mayors through these devastated pueblos todavía. And they invited me to a ceremony. And you might remember, about 6 weeks ago, there was a National Guard plane that crashed in Georgia. It was a Puerto Rican aircrew that died. And I was invited to the ceremony, forgive me, it was very moving. And it struck me, here since World War I, we've had our American citizens, brothers and sisters from the island, fighting and dying for the defense of our country. And we can't get them clean water. We can't get them electricity. And why is that? Because they're a commonwealth. They are the longest running commonwealth in American history. And what that means is, yes, they're American citizens, but they don't get to vote in national elections. So they don't get to vote for the presidency. And while they have one person in the House of Representatives, it's a non-voting member. They have no voting representation in the United States Congress. And then we wonder why they're not getting the aid that they so desperately need. And let me just share this with you. They haven't recovered from the last hurricane. This hurricane season started 2 weeks ago. And no preparations have been made for that either. So as LULAC National President, I pledge that for the first time ever, we're going to put together a real campaign to help our brothers and sisters on the island, to give them status so they can have elected representation in Congress, and for once and for all, they can be treated like real American citizens. In closing, I know I'm going long. I know we have a phenomenal band coming up, and you've been sitting a long time. But as Jasmine kind of alluded to earlier, and our keynote speaker as well, tomorrow's Father's Day. I'm driving back late tonight, so my wife and the kids want to make me breakfast. And by the way, I have my son back here tonight, Nate Morin. He goes with me to everything, so thank you, son. I appreciate it, love you. But tomorrow I ask each one of you to take some time out. And even, and let me just say this, you don't have to be a man to be a father. A child doesn't need to be yours biologically for you to be a father. So let me thank everybody out there who's playing that role model and providing that support. But I ask everyone here to take a moment to appreciate how precious that is. Because as Jasmine mentioned earlier, right now, there are people coming to our country seeking a better life for their children. There are people coming to our country seeking asylum because of the violence and destruction that's happening in their countries. And as they approach our border guards seeking asylum, they're having not just their young children, but infants, their babies taken from them, so that this guy in the White House can send a strong message. That is inhumane. I don't care what country you're from. I don't care what language you speak. This is God's law. You do not strip a child from their parents. And I guess there's a couple of people who said that a little bit better than me. Catholic Bishop Joe Vasquez, chairman of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, stated, "Children are not instruments of deterrence, but a blessing from God." And Ravina Shamdasani, the spokeswoman for the UN High Commissioner for the Council on Human Rights, put out a statement. "The use of immigration detention and family separation as a deterrent runs counter to the human rights and standards and principles of all human beings." So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Tomorrow morning, it's not there yet, but tomorrow morning, go to www.darrylmorin.org or www.darrylmorin.org, and you're going to see a link. And when you click on that link and you put in your address, it's going to show you who your 2 United States senators are and who the representative is for your district. I'm going to ask you to take 5 minutes away from the time we're blessed to be spending with our families to write a note of your choosing and to have it sent to all 3 of them. And the following day, if it so moves you, go ahead and give them a call as well. The phone numbers will be listed. There's so much at stake right now. You are in this room right now because you have chosen to serve a greater good, to serve a cause greater than oneself, and to make sure we leave this country the country we know it can be for our children and for their children. So on that note, let me just say thank all of you. Congratulations to the award recipients. God bless all of you. God bless Lula, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.